Hit the like button, subscribe.
Defense wins championships, everybody.
This weekend for racing was just major. It's combining the Super Bowl, the NBA Finals, the Stanley Cup, and the World Series, just all in one weekend. Because you have the Monaco Grand Prix. This is the top tier event for Formula One, and then you also have the Coca-Cola 600. This is one of the top major events of the year for NASCAR, along with the Daytona 500. And then you also had the Indy 500, which was like, one of the biggest races. And then for motorcycling, we also had the MotoGP, which is Formula One on two wheels. You had the British Grand Prix that was going down this weekend. So it was just a jam-packed weekend as far as racing went. To win for Monaco for Formula One this weekend, it was won by Lando Norris of the McLaren Mercedes team. My personal favorite driver, Lewis Hamilton, he came in 5th place. His teammate Charles Leclerc came on the podium. He finished in 2nd. 3rd place was rounded out by Oscar Piastri from Australia for the McLaren Mercedes team. And that's how it went. It was a pretty good weekend. This is also the first time that Formula One decided to implement mandatory pit stops during a race. And they had 2 in the hopes that it would shake up the order and bring somebody who's normally running at the back close to the mid pack or the front to get some points. Didn't really work out that way, but it was still a pretty decent event in my personal opinion.
With the Formula One brand, is it only these pristine automakers that can enter cars for this race? Or could anybody design a car and it be, I don't know, up to their standards and then say, okay, this is my brand, boom, let me enter this race?
You are actually into something, and that has what you're talking about has been done back in the late 60s, early 70s. A gentleman from California named Dan Gurney, who was a racer, he created his own car called the Eagle F1, and it was made to fit the specifications that were mandated by the FIA to race a car. And so when he entered his car, I want to say he came in 5th place. He placed in the points and he did very well. It was a good car and everybody was completely shocked. And back in the day, those guys are what we called garagists or garagiste, as the French would say. It's pretty much a privateer, somebody like you or me who builds our own car or motorcycle up to the specifications and enters a race. And we do it on our own.
Now you take the risk of, you have to be heavily financial, endowed, because those cars, if I'm not mistaken, cost a heck of a lot of money.
Yes.
And don't you have to have multiple different engines on deck? So many sets of tires on deck, even when going into the race. Isn't that a rule?
From now on with Formula One, what we've been doing for the last few years is they've done what's called the cost cap, and they've also, to make it cheaper for the smaller teams that don't have the big financial budgets, let's say like McLaren, Ferrari, Aston Martin, and Audi, who will be coming into Formula One next year. These guys are major corporations. They got deep pockets. So they're like, okay, small teams back in the day, they were living on $150, $200 million a year. And then you had the big guys, McLaren, Ferrari, Renault, Honda, Toyota, Ford. They were dropping $400 to $500 million a year. $400 to $500 million a year.
I also know, too, Leonard, that a lot of oil companies used to invest in, these racing teams as well. Specifically, DuPont, which is we already know, DuPont used to make ammunition way back in the day and stuff like that. Now, their technology, Teflon and all that stuff, but their money is oil. Are oil companies still involved in, these products? And I know that's kind of big in Indianapolis, with the Indy 500 as well. Where is their place as far as, representing or sponsoring these racing teams?
Well, with IndyCar, you're looking at something that completely is different as a whole, because the way we do business here and the way the companies are coming in, I'm not going to advertise a product on your car if I can't correlate my product to what you're doing. So it puts a lot of things out, companies out. But you'll see Coca-Cola, you'll see Pepsi, you'll see so many different companies coming into the sport, and those companies can they can go across. For instance, just like the Super Bowl, you know, how many commercials have you seen at the Super Bowl in the last 40 years that are advertising Coke and Pepsi, McDonald's, Burger King, you know, Toyota, Ford, all these. So everybody, your product has to kind of correlate to what you're sponsoring. In oil companies, who do you think makes the fuel for the cars? And Formula One, it's with the oil companies, you're talking, hey, I got Aramco, which is the Arab oil company from Saudi Arabia. They sponsor the Aston Martin team. With Ferrari, it's Shell Oil. It used to be Aggi, which is a Italian oil company. With McLaren, they still get sponsorship from the Gulf Oil and Mobil One. And then you got other teams like Red Bull. They use Mobil One, but they also use Honda powertrains. So nowadays, it's the engine manufacturer is important, but you also want to look at the fact of how they develop their road cars. Who do they develop their products with? And then they bring it over to the racing side to see, can this correlate?
Gotcha.
It's a big change.
Is DuPont still involved, you know, with motorsports racing? I know, you know, they used to make gunpowder for wars and things like that many decades, centuries ago. But
Civil War enthusiast.
Civil Wars, yeah.
Yeah. With DuPont, I don't know. I remember they sponsored Jeff Gordon back in the day, but I haven't seen, since he retired from motorsport, I don't think he's really, you know, I don't think DuPont's really done anything much. But there are other oil companies around the world. PDVSA, they used to sponsor Pastor Maldonado from Venezuela. That was the state-ran oil company, and I haven't seen them in a long time. Petrobras, which is Petroleum Brazil, they sponsor Gabriel Bortoleto, who's driving for the state Sauber F1 team right now. Petroleum Malaysia, they sponsor the the Mercedes factory team, the Mercedes AMG. So there's quite a few companies going around in there, but they're very, very silent about sponsoring. And if you got to just look at the car and see what logos are on there, and if you recognize it, you recognize it. Other than that, it's just like, nah. But the price that these companies are paying is what's astronomical, because when you're talking, this is the difference in between certain series like NASCAR. You can sponsor, let's say Shell has a car in NASCAR, which they do. Well, the sponsorship of Shell, let's say they're giving, you know, $3 million to that one team. But when Shell is in Formula One, or they go to IndyCar, let's say they're giving, you know, $5 million. But when you come to Formula One, you're actually selling space as a team to a sponsor. So if I wanted DSpeed, and DSpeed's got it, his business is a big corporation, and he's got a high standard for cutting hair, and he opens up a bunch of shops around the United States, and he's just killing it. And I say, and he wants to put his name on the car, just on the nose cone. Okay, one space on the nose cone, that's going to be, let's say, 8 inches by 5 inches. All right, man, that's, you know, that's $10 million.
Oh my God.